Good morning, Journey. Happy Sunday. We're going to start this morning off with worship. Will you guys stand and sing with us?
Place to hide is who you saw. These vagabonds, and I tried with all my might, but I just can't win the fight. I'm slowly drifting, a vagabond, and just when I ran out of road, I met a man didn't know, and he told me that I was not alone. He picked me up, he turned me around, he placed my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because he healed my heart, he changed my name, forever free. I am not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior. No choice but to believe. Doubts are burning like ashes in the wind. So long to my old friends, burden and bitterness. You can't just keep it moving. No, you ain't welcome here. From now till I walk the streets of gold, sing of how you saved my soul. This wayward son has found his way back home. Oh, he picked me up, he turned me around, he placed my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because he healed my heart, he changed my name, forever free. I am not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, I thank God. And lost another one. I am free, I am free, I am free. And lost another one. I am free, I am free, I am free. And lost another one. I am free, I am free, I am free. And lost another one. I am free, I am free, I
Come on, let's sing this out.
and lost another one. I am free, I am free, I am free. And lost another one. I am free, I am free, I am free. And lost another one. I am free, I am free, I am free. And lost another one. I am free. Pick me up, turn me around, place my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because he healed my heart, he changed my name, forever free. I am not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, I thank God. I thank God.
A starry night, a newborn king, hark the herald angels singing,
has come now here to dwell. The advent of Emmanuel, Messiah, Messiah. Behold him, come and behold him. Joy to the world, oh, is given. Adore him, come and adore him. For unto us a Savior given. He is the Son of Heaven. Behold, rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Tidings of comfort and joy. Rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Tidings of comfort and joy. Rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Tidings of comfort and joy. Rejoice, 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 rejoice. Behold him, come and behold him. Joy to the world, oh, is given. Adore him, come and adore him. For unto us a Savior given. He is the Son of
Good morning. Hey, before you sit down, go ahead and say hi to someone around you and let them know whether eggnog is delicious or disgusting. Just so you all know, the correct answer is delicious. Yes, eggnog's so good. Hey, my name is Chris. I'm one of the pastors here at Journey, and we just want to welcome you to church, whether this is your millionth time or first time or just first time in a long time. You are welcome here. And I'm the pastor who oversees our connections team, and I would love to invite you to meet me outside at the welcome table. If you're new or it's your first time back in a long time, we would love to give you a free gift, help you get connected here at Journey. It includes a free coffee drink over at our Plaza Cafe, among other things. So just want to invite you to come meet me and a few members of our team afterwards if you've got time after service. We also want to invite you to our Christmas Eve and our Christmas Eve services this year. We've got a couple on December 23rd, 4 and 6 p.m., and we've got 3 on December 24th at 2, 4, and 6 p.m. We would love for you to join us for Christmas here. We're going to have wonderful, memorable experiences with Jesus, reflecting on the birth of God in our midst. And we also are going to have wonderful Christmas programs for our kids over in kids ministry. They're going to experience great services as well. So if you have kiddos, it'll be a great time for them too. Now, speaking of invitation to Christmas Eve, I don't know if you noticed last week, but we had these really beautiful invitation cards. And you guys must have thought they were really, really beautiful because we ordered 3,000 and last weekend alone, we gave away 2,400. Yeah, so that's awesome, I know. So, and then the Christmas tea happened, which we'll talk about in a second, and they said we need some, and so I gave them the rest. So we're pretty much out, just so you know. So let that be an encouragement to you. If you have a few of these sitting around, don't let them live in the bottom of your purse until next Christmas, okay? Like, give them to people. And I want to encourage you to pray. This word has been on my mind and heart. Pray for the unexpected invite. Right? Pray for the one that you might think, I don't know that they would really want to come. And then invite them, give them one of these. And since we are out of these cards, we will have more coming soon. But if you scan this QR code, we have a digital invite card. You can download the graphic to invite people, whether you send it over text, email, via social media, however you want to do that. But we encourage you to scan that. You can also find it on our website. We have our Christmas webpage up and running. You can find it there as well. Now, we also have an invitation for you to be involved in the Christmas season in a giving manner, because we all know that Christmas is not just about getting, but it is about generosity as well. So we have a few different ways to engage in that here as the community of Journey. First, you can volunteer for our Christmas Eve and Christmas Eve services. We want to make this place a welcoming place for anyone who's coming in for a Christmas experience. So if you want to help us do that, go ahead and scan the QR code. We're also continuing our blankets and Bibles drive. So feel free to drop off blankets and Bibles for our homeless neighbors who are looking for a little bit of hope and a little bit of warmth this Christmas season. You can do that outside in the lobby. You can do that at our office. And then finally, we have Christmas gifts for Journey kids. We want to make sure that none of the kids here at Journey ever feel like they don't have a true, full Christmas experience. And that includes fun and hope and joy. And sometimes we communicate that via gifts. And we want to help families that aren't able to do that this year. So if you would like to donate, go ahead and scan the QR code, talk to me at the welcome table. Or if you're a family that needs some help, feel free to let us know. Come find me afterwards. Would love to talk to you about that. Now, as I invite the ushers forward, I want to draw your attention to some of the things that God is doing in our midst here at Journey. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to our giving, our offering, this is for people who call Journey their home. If you're new this morning, don't feel obligated, please, to give. We want you to receive from the Lord this morning. So there are a couple things that have been going on, just a couple things that have been going on at Journey this Christmas season, as you can imagine, but a couple that we would like to highlight. First, we would like to highlight there was a Cookies with Santa event last Saturday, which was awesome. We had about we want to clap? We can clap. Go ahead. I won't talk over you. We had over 300 people from our community come and join us. Families could come and that's a man who we invited to our Christmas service, and hopefully he sticks around as well. But we invited our community to come and make free Christmas cookies and meet Santa and take a picture with him. And so they had a really wonderful time. I've already seen some of them come back last Sunday and maybe some this Sunday. And again, just want to open up the love of God to the people of our community. We also had a women's Christmas tea, which saw over 500 women come. Yeah, it was awesome. And I'm already hearing really cool stories about the unexpected invites to that. People who were invited to come and have a meaningful Christmas experience and had a wonderful time and got connected. So we've been having some wonderful events, and there are some wonderful stories to share too. I'm gonna set up a video and we'll go into our message after that. Ed's gonna come up, but just for context, typically at our church, Ed, our lead pastor, likes to take the opportunity to pray and invite you guys to pray with us for the needs of our community. And Friday nights, we take a little bit more time because we have a little bit more time. And so last week, we prayed over several people who needed healing over various physical ailments. And there was a man named Skip on the phone. He wasn't with us because he was suffering from pain from shingles, excruciating pain. And so he was on the phone and we prayed for him. And then 2 days later, he showed up Sunday morning to tell us the story of what God had done in him. So watch this and celebrate with us.
Hi, my name is Skip. I've been suffering from shingles for about 10 days. Friday night, Ed and Nolan did a full church prayer for me, and I have no more nerve pain. It's just unbelievable. And I want to thank Jesus and everybody else that was a part of this. I can't believe I feel great. I feel great. This is just 2 days ago that they did the group prayer. And I thank everybody.
Hey, how are you guys? Everybody good? Good morning. Hope you're doing great. Thank you for braving the elements. I know it's brutal out there, man. It's brutal. Like if you're watching online and maybe you're not around here, man, pray for Southern California right now. It's dipped into the high 50s and it's windy out, man. So I sound like I'm making fun of you, but I no, respect. So, hey, way to go on the invite thing. How cool is that? It seems like there's something, this is weird. Like everything we're doing in terms of like Christmas and inviting people, it's like selling out and we're like running out of space and stuff. This is the first time in my memory we've ever like run out of invite cards ever. And we'll have another 1,000 here this week. So hopefully all the people you run into, or next week we'll have another 1,000. So hopefully all the people you run into this week, that you know that they don't end up like lost forever because we ran out of cards. So, but you can like use your mouth and invite them too. But no, we're stoked about that. So way to go and let's do it, man. Let's get our invite on. I say this all the time because I've been doing this like with Christmas for forever, it seems, but for decades, and it just never ceases to amaze me. You know, like that something about Christmas. I mean, and our culture seems to be getting more and more secular and more ignorant of like the tradition, the things that got us here. You know, but despite that, like and see, tell me if you're experiencing this. Every time I take a little bit of, just a tiny baby, little tiny risk, and go, hey, when you want to, I want to invite you to this. The response is always, wow, thanks. Yeah, maybe I'll come. Right? Like now, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's something about Christmas and Easter that make people more open to you inviting them to church, or maybe they're always open, and there's something about it that makes us a little more likely to extend the invite, right? But whatever it is, let's get busy. What do you say? And like there'll be 5 services. We'd love for you to serve at one and come to one and be praying for all of them. We'll tell you more about this later, but make sure like for that service that you, the regular people that you park far away, and make sure we save all the good spots for our guests and friends and stuff like that. So, right? Are you in? Yes? Yeah, you in? You guys online? You in? What? So anyways, so, and the other thing, before we get started, this is the Sunday we want to say, get your SPF 23, our vision that we've laid out. There's some of these in the lobby. This is our SPF 23 brochure. This part here, it's very clever. This becomes like a commitment pledge, right? And so today's the day we fixed in saying, all right, let us know what you're planning to do between now and Easter, our 30th anniversary. So like we want to move this thing forward And here's what I'd like you to do. And I don't usually reference this and ask you to do this because I don't do it myself. Like, I don't go back and listen to Ed's messages. I can't do it. I mean, I got other problems that a lot of self-loathing and past mistakes and all that. But I'm working on it. Actually, I'm not at all working on it. But figure at this point it is what it is. But the deal is, like, if you missed Vision Sunday, like it was a kind of a two-parter, but if you missed the one where we were all in this room at the same time and you're a part of Journey, like, and you say, I am Journey, then go back and watch that. You have it till today and get you can do it online or you can use a paper card or whatever and say, this is what I'm doing. I'm not gonna tell you where we're at until next week, but here's the thing. In terms of the amount of money that's pledged and like how close we are to what we think, and we didn't even have like a target or number. We just have this, like, we think it's gonna cost us about this much to do what we're saying. And we definitely wanna tithe that in getting the gospel out. We wanna support Young Life and like add another staff to them and stuff like that. But the number's really encouraging. That's all I'll say. However, we could do a lot better on the number of you that are in, that have let us know that you're in. Does that make sense? And so here's the deal, and I mean this, regardless of the amount, even if you're going, bro, I am so broken, could you do $1 a month, $1 a week? We want you in. And I know you're out there. I know that some of you are kind of like me. You're smart Alex, right? And you're like, oh yeah, what? Oh, so you're not gonna take my card if I take my money, if I give it after this, if I don't turn a card? Of course we're gonna take your money. It's like, you're a grown up, right? But we wanna do this together. We want you to feel like, yeah, I'm in this together, all right? I'm in this with you, and we're really close, and I would love for all of you to get involved. It doesn't matter the amount. Well, it matters a little, but it doesn't, that's not the main thing, right? So we really want, I dreamt of what if we did something where everybody dives in? So, yeah, are we okay? Are we good? You don't feel pushed around or yelled at yet? All right, that's coming. So, all right, let's do message stuff. So as you saw from our cool graphic and video and stuff, our series is called Navigating Christmas. And we've talked about the different stuff you've got to navigate, the movement in the Christmas story. And just like then, they had to navigate stuff, and we have to navigate stuff. And last week we talked about navigating the unexpected, and we looked at the part of the Christmas story called the Annunciation. It's one of my favorite parts. And then next week, I'm kind of stoked about this. We're gonna look at a part of the Christmas story that, as far as I can figure and look back on, we've never done a message on this. And so I really can't wait for you to hear that. So that's next week. But this week, we're gonna talk about navigating disappointment. And it's funny because Christmas is, unless you're really a hard-hearted person, you feel like every year you come and go, yeah, this is a cool time of year. It's special, maybe even magical. I don't know, it's just fun, it's nice, right? But it does seem, doesn't it? I mean, if we're honest, even those of us that love this stuff, like some of you are Christmas lovers, right? You start the Christmas music, right around the time the NFL season starts, and you're like, which is kind of biblically, that's when the season starts. And you're, but even you guys that are totally really into this, you gotta admit, it does seem like Christmas, the whole season, the holiday, the whole deal is like custom suited. Like it's setting you up for disappointment, right? Of all holidays, this one is like, that of all the things you're gonna feel, disappointment is a pretty high probability in that. And there's two videos I'm gonna show you. And the first one, I saw it this week, it's a Duracell commercial, right? So hopefully online, we'll be able to leave this up for a while. We'll find out if YouTube bans us or something, but I would think Duracell would want more people seeing their commercials, right? So check this out. This reminded me of my memories as a kid. So,
Gosh, Santa Claus was here.
There's nothing better than being a kid on Christmas morning. Until you become a parent. And even though these moments don't last forever, Duracell can make them last longer.
Isn't that nice? That's fun, isn't it? It's like, oh man, yeah. Well, here's another video, and it's from one of the great artistic films of all time, and it's a little bit about maybe the other side of how Christmas feels sometimes.
You want to hurry this up, Clark? I'm freezing my baguettes off. 250 strands of light, 100 individual bulbs per strand for a grand total of 25,000 imported Italian twinkle lights. Hey! 25,000.
Well, I hope nobody I know drives by and sees me standing in the yard staring at the house in my pajamas.
If they know your dad, they won't think anything of it.
Fire it up, Dad!
I dedicate this house to the Griswold family Christmas. Drum roll, please. Drum roll. Beautiful, Clark.
Oh, talk about pissing your money away. Oh, I hope you kids see what a silly waste of resources this was.
You worked really hard, Grandma.
So do washing machines.
Now, you know I had to end that early because I love the part where he starts punching Santa and the reindeer. I mean, it's got it all, right? The excessive drinking, that always makes for a fun Christmas. The relatives, the teenage kid that's above it all. It's like, it's just funny. You hear people say, oh, when there's kids around, children, Christmas is magical. That's always said by people who don't have kids around, right? And or for more likely, if it's been a long time since your kids are around. I think it was last Christmas. So I forget what it was. Of course, you always forget exactly what it was, but it was. We have a list because our grandsons. They want a lot of stuff, and so they have their list. And so this was on Augie's list, pretty high up, and it wasn't cheap, whatever it was. And I remember, it was just you're sitting there like in the Duracell commercial, and you're going, oh man, he's gonna freak out when he sees this. And of course, he opens it and takes it out of the box and goes, I didn't want that. It's like, wow, right? Awesome. Don't hate. I mean, trust me, this kid's working it. So, the deal is, and the thing is, there's funny disappointment like that. Kind of funny. It's not really funny, but a little bit funny. Funny to other people if they're not experiencing it. But then there's the real disappointment. The stuff that's kind of behind that, by the end of the day, the drinking isn't funny anymore, you know what I mean? And those comments have kind of gotten on you for a while. The little sarcastic comments. And and all of a sudden you're like, when is this gonna end? And of course, duh, it's not just Christmas. It's like this, of all the feelings there are out there, I think, for this message I was thinking, what if you could rank them? Of the worst feelings in life. Like I was thinking regret's pretty high. Don't you think? That feeling of regret, that's a pretty bad one. But I think disappointment lives somewhere. Put some respect on disappointment in terms of a crappy feeling. Like that's up there, right? And a lot of us, here's the reality, here's the power of it, is that a lot of us have ruined our lives and crippled ourselves, basically structuring our whole life around avoiding disappointment. Like we're weird and closed off, and we're not very good we're worse at relating to people than we used to be because we've been hurt and disappointed. And so it's kind of like, if you have a bad ankle or a bad knee, and then you start walking around to compensate for that, and next thing you know, your whole thing is out of whack, right? So we're gonna look at like navigating disappointment by looking at Christmas according to John, the Gospel of John. You could call this the behind the scenes Christmas story, and it's kind of weird. And if every now and then we'll take a run at John, but it's not the go-to place for Christmas, thinking about the Christmas narrative and the Christmas story. There's no characters in it. There's no Mary, there's no Joseph, there's no reindeer. There's not, like, none of them are in there, right? But John is gonna have a definite take on navigating Christmas. And his thing is kind of like I said, behind the scenes. Like you see, like I've mentioned before, when our creative team came up with this theme of navigating Christmas and this look, and it's like all of a sudden it popped in my brain. It's like something I haven't really thought that much about, but it's like it just became so obvious. Like as you read the story, the movement, it's like you're watching something that's moving. Everybody in the story is moving. They're like whether it's they need to, they have to, they're being compelled to, whether it's they're following prophecies. But here's the real interesting thing. They're following these prophecies that they only sort of understand. In the Magi's case, they're following something that has lingered in their culture for several hundred years, this idea of something that might come. They're following like stars and paths and things they're intuiting. In other words, what John will say to us, like really explicitly, like what the stories tell us, like that you can kind of see if you look. John just comes out and says it. And John says, you know what all this is called? It's called revelation. It's called there needs to be things that are revealed. And here's John's idea here is that navigating Christmas, and for that matter, navigating life, you're going to need revelation. You're going to need something to be revealed to you. Like John will begin his story with one of the most famous lines. I'd say it's in the top 20 for sure. Famous lines in the Bible. Let me just start it and see how many of you go, oh yeah, I know that. John starts his book by going, in the beginning was the Word. Anybody? Is that familiar? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was, we'll get to that in a second. One of the most famous lines, right? And so here's what we're gonna do. John is saying, here's what you need. The other Gospels about Christmas, here's a star, follow that light. Here's a prophecy. Here's another prophecy. Here's another prophecy. Here's what God is doing in the whole world through these evil people, these Romans, these oppressors, but yet God is even using them to get everybody where they need to be. In other words, there's these, and what John says is remember I told you, this is the behind the scenes gospel. This is all right, here's what this means gospel. The other gospels tell you the story. John says, okay, you know the story, right? Right, good. Here's what that meant. Here's what it was. And what it was is God was revealing stuff to us. So here's how we're gonna do this. We're gonna look at this story, And we're gonna skip a part in the middle that's the main point and come back to it because I want you to feel this. Here's the little backstory, whatever, about what you're about to read. So like when you're in school and learning the Greek language, ancient classical Greek, right? And the point is to read the New Testament in that language. Just like learning any language, they don't start you like, you don't learn Russian by having them give you, the brothers like in Russian. Hey, good luck, kid. They don't do that. There's readers and primers and stuff like that. When you're learning Greek, as soon as you kind of can, they start you on the stuff in the New Testament that was written by John. 1 John, and then this gospel. In fact, somewhere in there, I remember a friend of mine who was actually taught first year Hebrew, but he was really good in the languages, and he had this suggestion like that you memorize some of your favorite verses, you memorize them in the language. So one of the first verses I ever memorized in Greek was this John 1:1, en archein logos, kaitheas proston logon, kaitheas, right? It's like, it's not hard. It's the simplest Greek in all the New Testament. Like Luke is super hard. Luke's like reading Aristotle or Plato in terms of the language. Luke was a native Greek speaker. He was an educated Greek speaker. John is clearly his second language. Does that make sense? All right. Simple as Greek, but crazy concepts. Like even though the language is simple, the concepts are so, like almost all of the arguments and false teachings and the great things the early Christ followers had to figure out, like almost all of the creeds that you recite in churches to this day that are almost 2,000 years old or 1,700 years old or whatever, almost all of them, the rub and the discussion came down to this, what we're gonna read right now. So it's like the easiest Greek and the deepest stuff in all the Bible. It's weird like that, right? It's funny that God would do it like that. But here's the deal. So there's lots of stuff we could do to like break it down and analyze like, oh, wow, man, all right, we need to think about that. But we're not gonna do that because we're gonna, here's what John, I think what he wants you to do. He wants you to feel this first. And because when you feel it, you're gonna go, oh, okay. And then it'll kind of activate your brain to go back if you want to and do all the analyzing and all. Am I making any sense here? It's kind of like this. Here's how this chapter works. It's kind of like you wait out and you go, yeah, this is pretty simple. And okay, these are all really easy words. And it's like, but next thing you know, you go, well, I'm just gonna swim out a little bit. And it's like there's this powerful rip current and you swim a little bit and you look up and you're a quarter mile offshore, you're right? You've experienced that, like swimming around here sometimes. You're like, uh-oh, right? I'm caught in a rip current. And that's kind of what, and rips are about what's at the bottom, right, that you can't see. They're about the contours of the ocean floor right around there. And it's kind of like, ooh, man, I got caught in a channel and I am out. That's John, and we're gonna feel that, right? So we'll look at this and I'll say a few things and then get to the main point. So you're gonna have to hang with me for a few minutes before it starts coming together. But just feel it, and you will feel it. It's written in a way that you feel it, all right? Yeah? Ready to go? Yeah? All right, here we go. It's gonna be on the screen. You might wanna look it up on your phone app in your Bible, or if you actually have a Bible with you. So here we go. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Right away, you can't help but do what? It sounds like he's kind of repackaging the very first word of the Bible, right? Here's how the Hebrew Bible starts. In the beginning, right? God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void. And the Spirit of God was hovering, fluttering over the water and over the deep. And then the waters became, and then God said, and then God said, let there be light. The first sound in the universe, the first audible thing in the universe was God saying, Vayahi or let there be light. So keep that in mind, right? In the beginning, John's saying, synapses, fire, connect, and so here we go. Just go with it. That's what you do with the riptide. You can't swim against it, you just go with it, right? And then you can swim sideways. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him. And apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. All Christ followers, now they might not get it. Nobody fully gets it. But if you're a Christ follower, one of the things you believe and you understand is that this Jesus person who was on the earth was the creator of the earth. Look at that verse. All things that came into being through him. And apart from him, nothing has come into being that has come into being. Out you go, right? You're like, whoa, what? He goes on to say, in him, now we're going to have another concept. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Remember Genesis 1? Let there be light. And in him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness. This is the formless and void part, by the way, just for some other time. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. A better translation of that, much better translation, is the darkness did not overcome it, did not overtake it. Now, John's going to get into history, into their experience, what's recently happened to them. There came a man sent from God whose name was John. Now, who wants to take a swipe at who he's talking about? John the Baptist, right? He came as a witness to testify about the light so that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but he came to testify about the light. Are you guys feeling this? There's these ideas, the word, things coming into being through the word. There's these other two big ideas, right? Light, he is the light, and that light is the life. Without that light, then what does that mean? You don't really have life. And so it's like, listen, this is important. John is saying what we've said here about this part of the Christmas story. To navigate this, to do this, you need revelation. In other words, you're not going to figure this out on your own. You're not going to be able to think your way through this. If God's just to stand back and say, well, just figure it out. I've given you enough clues, just figure it out. Nobody would figure it out. See, we need revelation because, first of all, what you were made for is greater than you can figure out. If your life and your purpose and what you do with your life, if the sum total of it all is what you can figure out, you are leaving it way short. There's something, you were made for something eternal, like something, and you can feel that, right? That's why, in a weird way, death, even if you saw it coming a mile away, somebody's been sick for years and then they pass, it still a little bit surprises you when you hear, and it always disappoints you, does it not? You're always like, crap. Why is that? Why is it, we aren't, like analytically, we know everyone dies, but why does it still, you know why that is? Because we were made for the eternal. And every time, that's why death oddly enough, still disappoints us. Isn't that weird? Here's the other reason you got to have revelation is because all of us are in a space when we become, like when we're like in our running around in our lives, where the Bible describes it like this, quote, we are all darkened in our understanding. Okay, if you like, like large words or technical concepts, this is called, if you vocab word for you, in the noetic effects of sin. In other words, it's your brain gets affected by us keeping God at a distance, by us not submitting and flowing with God, by us having other gods before him, other things that we put before him. Where that lands is in your thoughts. So here's the deal. You know how we say, and I think everybody agrees with this, especially in this room, everybody's broken. Everybody needs a healing from God. We're all broken, right? Every person you meet has something broken about them. Yes? You get that, right? Except me. But most of it, we all have that. Listen, what that means and where that brokenness lives is in our minds, in our thoughts, in our thinking. That's the locus of our brokenness. Does that make sense? That's why the Bible says you got to be renewed in your mind. Like that's where the healing comes too. And then here's another reason why you got to have revelation. Why the light needs to, because remember he says, and the light shines in the darkness. And guess what? Before the light hits you, you're the darkness. You're living in the darkness. You're darkened in your understanding. Thus, what we said sounded like a kind of a, innocuous statement. Thus, we need revelation. The light needs to shine in our darkness. And so here's the cool thing. The word shows up and does just that. Yay, right? Whew. Now you're going, yeah, but what does it mean that everything came? Forget it. You're too far out already. Start swimming sideways. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to skip down, on purpose. We're going to skip down to more of this, right? So he goes on to say, this is pretty famous. And the word, have you guys heard this before? Yes? Okay. And the word, this word, like anarchein, logos, this word, this communication thing from God, this revelation from God, Jesus was the revelation of God. This word becomes flesh. It becomes human. It's like if Jesus was in the room, say you were back in a synagogue, and there's this one cool synagogue in this place called Magdala, one of my favorite spots in all of Israel. And they unearthed this first century synagogue. There's a 100% chance Jesus was there many times. It just gives you chills being there, right? But say you're in the synagogue, it's Saturday, and you're instead of Sunday, and you're sitting there, and Jesus would have walked in. It's not like he was like Shaq O'Neal size. We go, oh yeah, or it's not like he would float in. Like Jesus seems to be walking, and he's walking in, and you're like, ooh, what's that? It's not like when you looked at him, it'd be like in the movies where it's like there's something about those eyes, and it's just like, zzz, like, yes, I will follow you. And it's not like that, right? He became flesh, human. When you shook hands with Jesus, because of he's the guy that worked with his hands, there's probably calluses on his hands. Probably his body looks like a guy that worked. When you say carpenter, like he's a carpenter, like we think guy with wood, right? But the word is teknon, and they built mostly with stone. So he's a guy moving stone around. So he probably looked like a guy who did that for a living. He became flesh and dwelt among us. Okay, the word dwelt there is kind of, this is a little bit fun. That's the word for to tent, to make and to be in a tent. The word is, see, the problem is everybody knows what dwelt meant, but if you're old school and you remember when churches used Bibles that had thee and thou in it, if you've been around that long, which is not that long, but I mean, if like 30 years ago, people liked that version of the Bible. This verse would have said, and the word became flesh. And anybody remember the word? Well, actually, I take it back. It wasn't here, but it should have been. Tabernacled. Like there's this word. Now, that's the word there. The problem is nobody knows what that word means anymore. And so what that means is that Jesus, the tabernacle, was this tent that they made in the middle of the desert after the children of Israel came out of Egypt. I know I'm mixing up my Bible stories. So if you're new to the Bible, you're like, dang, you're all over the place. Yeah, and that in about 1,500 years before this, which was 2,000 years ago, so we're talking like 3,500 years ago, they were delivered out of Egypt, all right? Go back and watch the movie with Charles Neston and Yul Brynner, or they made a new one of that. Was it Christian Bale? Was he Moses? All right, well, whatever. Batman, Moses, whatever. Pretty similar guys. So when they got out there, God gave them explicit instructions to make this tent. It was called the tent where we would meet, the tent of meeting, where you would meet, where like God and Israel, God and people, like it was this weird, out in the middle of the Sinai desert, and God said, okay, build this kind of wall around it, and then the tents to be made of this kind of material and this thread, and then we're gonna build an altar, and then you build the Ark of the Covenant, and make sure you guard it from the Nazis. That's important, and keep that in there because they're gonna want to steal this thing. And the deal is, like this was a spot on the earth where heaven and earth were to come together. It sounds like our prayer, right? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. What? On earth as it is in heaven. So like that was what that looked like at the time. And here's what John is saying. The word became flesh, and then it became the tabernacle. So when Jesus is running around and and he heals this, like there's a story where he heals this guy. He says, he starts off the healing by this. He says, my son, your sins are forgiven. And he's like, everybody's like, oh, you can't say that. Because the place you would have to go to get your sins forgiven was the place that had like kind of that tabernacle, what was the temple, the permanent tabernacle. And Jesus said crazy stuff like this. Well, yeah, I'm all temple, yeah. There's something greater than the temple standing right in front of you. What he literally said is, yo soy el temple, right? And he's like, I am the temple. And he saw his glories of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. Doesn't the whole language, you just feel like we just keep going out, right? You just keep going deeper and deeper with this guy. Like, dude, he goes, verse 15, John testified about him and cried on saying, this is he, okay, it's just gonna get crazier and deeper. This is he of whom I said, he's younger than me, he comes after me, but he actually has a higher rank, for he existed before me. And you could just imagine when people would read this and hear John talk like this, they would go, what? He existed before, for of his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, and grace and truth was realized through Jesus Christ, through Jesus the Messiah. And no one has seen God at any time. No one has ever seen the God, we would say God the Father, but this one, the only begotten God. See that phrase right there? John makes that up. Word's never in any literature before this. It's like John takes 3 words, puts them together, monogenes theis, the only begotten God who is in the bosom of the Father. Jesus exegeted God. So when you saw Jesus, you're like, it's weird. It's an impenetrable mystery. It's like you're seeing a guy that was a guy. He was a certain height. He weighed a certain amount. He ate. He did all the human things, but you were seeing God being explained to you. Because to navigate life, we need revelation. You're not, oh, I'm good. No, you're not good. Oh, I'm fine. No, you're not fine. You need revelation from God, or you're in darkness. Crazy, right? If this isn't a little crazy to you and like a little bit, like if you're not squinting a little bit going, hey, then you're not getting it. So you notice, right, that we skipped right in the middle. We skipped some because that's where the plot twist is. And that's where you're like, I thought this message had something to do with disappointment. Oh yeah, it does. But here's the weird plot twist. In John's account, this is weird. God is the one who is disappointed. Now, just let me throw this out there and take it, leave it. Please don't feel we're just trying to weigh you down with large words or whatever. When I say this, there's a term in literature that's, there's 2 related terms, anthropomorphic, human, man, whatever, morph, like that human form, and anthropopathic, like for feelings. It's always, we always have to kind of whenever you read the Bible, you have to take a step back and hold loosely emotions that it describes God as having. Does that make sense? Because emotions, like the way we experience emotions, is pretty closely tied to how limited we are. Like the fact that we live in a moment and we are powerless to change what has already happened and really don't have any real idea of what's gonna happen 10 minutes from now. Does that make sense? So therefore we can be surprised, or therefore we can be angry because, dang it, this isn't working out, and I don't think it's gonna work out, right? And we don't know what other people, we don't even know our own thing, let alone other people, and so they can hurt us, and they can make us feel, and they don't make us feel stuff, but we can feel stuff, be like good or bad because of them, right? And our limited knowledge of them. Does that make sense? So if you are somebody or like a being like God that knows the end from the beginning, you don't have Christmas morning where God's opening it up and he goes, I wonder what it is. It's like, hey God, you're gonna love this. It's like, he already knows. Are you with me? And so when we say that God is disappointed, it's not like, right? You get the idea that God is not looking at like us or humans and going, I really can't believe you did this. I had so much hope for you. I'm so let down, right? He knows the end from the beginning. It's not like when you fall on your face spiritually that God is standing over you going, oh man, it just hurts me that you keep, you say you're trying to change, but I don't see it. Right? God doesn't go there because he's not there, yes? However, you got to be careful not to think of God as this like force that can't feel anything, that doesn't have the full range of like emotions, because our emotions are part of us being made in the image of God. I can tell by the looks on your faces this isn't making sense, but I'm gonna just keep rolling on just because what choice do I have at this point, right? We're too far in. But listen to this. So you see, right? You got all this stuff. The Word is in the beginning. Everything is created through him. He's coming into the world. The darkness tries, but it can't shut him down and it can't overcome him. And he sends this guy, John, to set this up. John's not the light, but John is gonna say, here he comes, full of grace and truth. Friends, the dwelling of God is gonna be with men for a while. Jesus is gonna be like, God is dwelling among us, and we're gonna see lived out what God is like. So God is like fully extending himself, and then look at what happens. This is on your outline, and it's also on the screen. He, the Word, Jesus, he was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. Right? He's in the world that came into existence through him, that he is sustaining every moment, but it is like, and you are who again? And why do you think you're allowed to say this stuff? Then he comes to the people that have had the most revelation and came to his own, and his own received him not. Now, but as many as did receive him, to them he gave the right, the exousia, the authority to become children of God, even to those who believed in his name. They were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh. In other words, this isn't like, but God, this birth has to happen from God. So here's what we'll close with. Three landmarks in navigating disappointment. Now, here's the deal. These are all the same point. They're just said three different ways. And hopefully, here's what I think will happen. When we're done, you'll go, oh yeah, I get it. Or maybe not, but I think you will. So here's the first landmark. Like you're navigating. So, you need like, okay, landmarks. Like there's different, depending on where you surf here, there's different, like at most beaches, there's like something you're looking at going, oh man, we need to paddle more over by there. Or here's by the glass house, or okay, there's that rock that it's like there's landmarks. Here's the first one about disappointment. Disappointment happens when our view of reality has morphed. When you feel yourself feeling disappointment, here's what's behind that, is that if you're a Christ follower for sure, your view of reality has kind of gotten a little off. And it's morphed from the way you're looking at life has morphed from God at the center to, well, you can put anything else at the center. It's more than possible. It's like our main battle, actually, that it's possible, and it happens all the time, that our hope begins to drift. Like you're sitting here in this room, or maybe when you were new at this God thing, and you were and everything was so new that you had to really think about everything, and nothing was automatic, that you said, okay, I gotta put my hope in God. But over time, your hope tends to drift. Remember that verse we read? He came into his own. Who was that? And his own received him not. Who were his own? The people of what nation? Israel, yeah. Good answer, right? Israel. And what did that look like? God calling to them, revealing himself to them, delivering them, and then he gets them out in the desert with that tent thing we were talking about, and then they end up by this mountain, Mount Sinai, and God says, okay, here's our covenant. Here's our deal. Here's the 10 words of the covenant. And so the first word of the covenant, what's the first? And it's like, it's always the first one is the one that goes, okay, this is what I'm talking about. And then the rest are like, all right, and so here's what, if you live this out, it's gonna look like this. The first thing on the covenant is this: you will have what? No other gods before me, right? Yes, you got that? You okay? You've heard of this before? All right. And then God goes on throughout the whole Revelation, throughout all the light he sends to them. All right, walk with me. Here, I will be with you. You don't have to be afraid. I will be with you. Later on, the prophets will say, you know what, you're turning to these other gods, and it's like you're trying to drink out of a mud hole, out of a broken well. You know, turn back to me. On and on it goes. But over time, by the time Jesus shows up, by the time John the Baptist shows up, John the Baptist has to say this. He's out there he's out there saying stuff like this. Don't say to me, because he's doing something weird. He's baptizing Jewish people. They didn't do that back then. The people that needed baptized were us Gentiles, us bacon eaters. You know what I mean? Like, we're the ones that needed to be like cleansed. And so John is saying, do not say, don't even bring it around here, oh, well, we're children of Abraham. John said, don't you know that God can take this rock and turn it into a child of Abraham? See, their hope, and here's what happens to you, and here's what happens to me. Our hope subtly, imperceptibly, over time, drifts. God's still in the equation. Notice what God said, have no other gods before me. God didn't say, okay, don't ever stop believing in me. You know, someday there'll be a great song saying, don't stop believing, and I want you to listen to that. Like, okay, that's not what he said. He says, I don't want you to let anything, like, here's me, here's you. There's nothing, I don't want anything in that space. Just, I want us direct. But dang, over time, right? Even for Christ followers, it's possible, likely, that our hope drifts. It's in the New Testament, you'll read this: if indeed you continue in the faith, firmly established and steadfast, and not moved away from the hope of the gospel, which clearly implies that it's possible to move away from the hope of the gospel. It's possible for you and for me. And when you do that, see, you go, well, I know that's a problem, but here's what happens. When you do that, you step away from God, and where you put your foot down, where your hope lands, it like ends up being something where it can't hold you up. And that feeling that you have when you're disappointed, like the bottom is falling out, and that disorientedness of disappointment is from you or me putting my foot down, my hope down on a place that could never, and down I go. It's kind of like, and you see those pictures of this, like Everglades and stuff, and you're walking on the shore, and you don't even see that it's water, and there's like lily pads and stuff, and it looks like almost like solid ground, and you go to step on it, and down you go. Some guy said this: man can live about 40 days without food, about 3 days without water, about 8 minutes without air, but only about 2 seconds without hope. That's a good quote, right? Here's the second thing, the second point, which is really the same as the first point. And it's this: what we need to do is repent. That's what John the Baptist was saying. Repent by refixing our hope to the only thing and one that will hold it up. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, even to those that would trust in his name. See, a lot of people, and I get this, because sometimes I do this. You go, yeah, I get it. I hate disappointment. So what I'm going to do is lower my expectations, right? Does that not sound like something you've thought and said and tried? I'm going to lower my expectations. I don't expect anything from you, right? So if I get anything, it's just bonus material. Doesn't work, right? I mean, you can say that, but you never work. You're still, yeah, well, I didn't expect anything from you anyways. It was like, well, obviously you did, But actually, what we're saying here is God is saying, dude, listen, look at me. Here's what God is saying. It's safe to raise your expectations. It's safe to do that. You just got to put them on me. And you just got to put them on like, guess what? If you'll receive me, you'll be a child of God. That'll change everything. We'll do this together. There won't be anything that happens to you that's like just random, like nothing. We repent by refixing our hope on him. Here's a verse you've probably never seen or thought about. Jesus, I'm going to read the verse before it. For Jesus was foreknown before the foundation of the world. God had this plan coming from before there was a universe. But he has appeared in these times, in these last days, for the sake of you. That's why Jesus showed up, for our sake. Now, this is heavy, right? Who through Jesus are believers in God, who raised him up from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope are in God. Now listen, this is the weird thought. Not only Jesus and his death and resurrection, not only are they, ready? Not only are they what you believe in, yeah, right? And what you trust in and what you hope in, yes, you still good? All right, not only are they that, but look at this. Through him, we are believers. In other words, not only are they what we believe in, but that Jesus coming, Jesus dying, Jesus rising from the dead, it enables us to be believers. Like, it's like, whoa, God says, yeah, that is gonna make you, not only do you, hey, believe in this, and this will make you a believer. It'll loosen up this, yeah, but I'm so disappointed, I'm so hurt, nothing's worked out, life sucks, everyone is gonna die, what's the point? God goes, okay, believe in me, and he'll free you from that. Here's the last one. It's like this. Remember how John swerves out of his lane? Kind of, in verse 8 is kind of a weird, like, what? Hey, why do you gotta be all like that, John? Where he goes, listen, he was not the light. Like John the Baptist, don't get this wrong. He was not the light, but he came to testify about the light. See, I talked to you about this last week if you were here. Like, Jesus came at a time when all of Israel had Messiah fever. Like they were all thinking, there were prophecies. It's gotta be now. And not only was there prophecies, but things sucked. Like they were getting pushed around all the time. Their nation was hanging by a thread. Those that were leading the nation were corrupt. We don't have those kind of problems, but they did, right? And they didn't feel like they could trust anybody in power. So the average person was just every which way. He was just jacked every which way. So they were like hoping for the Messiah, something, right? And so they see this cat, John, out there. Thousands of people are coming to him. There's clearly this movement. And so they go down and go, okay, who are you? Are you this? And here's one more little factoid. The end of the Old Testament, like literally the last line of it says, now hang in there. Someday God's gonna send Elijah back to get things rolling. And John the Baptist looks like Elijah, acts like what they thought, all hairy and wild and crazy and living out in the wilderness and eating the same, bugs and stuff that Elijah was eating. And so they're like, you're the dude, right? You're Messiah, dude. You please be that guy. And John's like, no, not the guy. But the guy's coming. Are you the guy? Please be the guy. Here, listen, this is huge. This is huge. And we're almost to the point where this makes sense, right? John is not the light. See, here's the deal. There's witnesses to the light, and then there's the light, right? John's making sure you understand that. John Baptist, great guy. Jesus said he's the greatest guy that ever lived up to that point. Great guy, not the light. And here's the other thing. Ready? This is for you, because you're going, yeah, I don't, John the Baptist, I don't know, whatever. A lot of guys have beards these days. Okay, great. But there are pointers, and then there's the point. All right, here we go. The good gifts that God sends into your life are the witnesses. They're the John the Baptists, right? Every one of those James says it this way, every good thing given, every perfect gift comes down from above, from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. If there's a good thing in your life, if you're healthy enough to be in this room right now, if you're healthy enough to turn on the app and watch it on wherever you're watching it from, that is a gift from God. You're like, well, it's not much of a gift. Well, there's plenty of people that they can't. If you're relatively comfortable, if you can sit through this without excruciating physical pain, boom, there's another gift. If you had any moments of happiness on the way here, if you got a cup of coffee from the Journey Java or the free coffee, better yet, good gift, right? Listen. Every good gift is a call, an invitation to turn to or return to the giver of those gifts. And they're also, here's the thing, don't forget that verse, that's why I stuck it on the outline. They are not the light. Here's the problem. The greater the gift God gives you. So I mentioned a few. Coffee, great gift. Food, great gift. Ready? If God somehow has given you a spouse, think about when you were deciding to marry that person. Don't think about all the problems you've had subsequently. That's for another sermon. But that sense, if God's given you children or a child, they're some of the greatest gifts. Ready? But they're pointers, not the point. The greater the gift, the greater the temptation to confuse pointer and point, witness and light. It's easy to sit and drink your coffee and go, this is from God, but you're not tempted to go, you know what life's about? Coffee. You know what I mean? So there's this old movie, not a Christmas movie like Die Hard, but it's an old movie, and it's Billy Crystal and Bruno Kirby and Jack Palance. It's called City Slickers. Is it plural? Sirs or singular? Slickers. And it's a cute movie, and it's a comedy. It's supposed to be a comedy, and the thing is, and it's also supposed to be a feel-good, quasi-inspirational movie, because he goes out there with a midlife crisis, bad case of it, and Jack Palance, the sage, rough cowboy, says, you got to find this, your one thing. Remember that? That's the whole point of the movie. And then he flies back to New York or wherever he's from, the city, and goes back to his life, because through this experience, he's found this. And he looks and it's, you know what it is? His it's his family who's there to pick him up. Right? Yeah, Billy Crystal. I remember seeing that movie, and I almost cried, all right, because I thought, he missed it. I know it's just a movie. I know these people aren't actually related to him. I get that. But I thought of that kid, and I thought, I feel so sorry for that kid. His dad has put all his hope in his kid. That's not fair to that kid. And guess what? When we put our hope down on anything that's a pointer and not a point, there's a great thinker that once said, given enough time, every human being will prove to you beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are not God. That was me, I said that. So anyways. So here's this same guy, John, when he's overseeing a bunch of churches in, we would call it Turkey, but they called it the Roman province of Asia, very Greek culture place. John writes these books to them, these little letters, and they're very stylistically, it's so like this. But he starts off his letter saying, that which we have seen, that which we have handled, that which we have touched. He's saying, dudes, he goes, you can just see John going, I wish you were there. I wish you could have, we touched him. He was right there. And it's like, like afterwards, how you know what you were experiencing was so special, but at the time, it's just called life. And so, he was right there. And he goes, and John was the best friend of Jesus on this earth. Like, Jesus was a human. He had friends. John was his best friend, the closest guy to him. John said, after 3.5 years of being with him every day and every night, he said, and here's my conclusion. This is like crazy awesome. He goes, remember how I said in my gospel that he explained God to us? Here's my conclusion. God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. That's what John came away with. That unlike with me, or you, or your spouse, or your kid, or your friend, or your church, or your job, or your every other thing we're tempted to put our hope in, with God, there is no dark side. So, here's the conclusion. Our third landmark. Disappointment can drive us, and this is because I wanted all D's, so we had to go Spanish. Disappointment can drive us to Dios or el diablo. And guess which one I'm advising? Let it drive you to God. It'll do one of those two, won't it? I know of people, and I know people that their disappointment drove them away from God. But let it drive you to God. Because with him, there is no darkness. So let's stand, and we're going to conclude the service by worshiping the Lord. Let me say our verse over you one more time. And then I'm going to invite you to take a step if you haven't taken it. Close your eyes if you don't mind. And just hear this one more time. But to as many as will receive him, this Jesus, this Christ, this Logos, as many as receive him, to them, he'll give you the right to be a true child of God. That means you'll have eternal life. You'll do life with him. You'll have someone upon you can hope. It says in the Bible many times, whoever trusts in him will not be disappointed. Whoever trusts in anyone else will definitely be disappointed. If you've never taken the step of receiving Jesus, why not right now you just say to God, all right, God, whatever that verse means, I want to do it. I want to receive Jesus right now on December 11th. I want that to be the day that I receive Jesus. I want to be a child of God. I believe in him. I believe in his death on the cross and his resurrection. I want him in my life. For the rest of us, as we worship, let's have this prayer in the back of our mind as we think about Christmas. God, help me, God, to let my disappointment drive me to you. God, may our disappointments cause us to have no other gods before you. May they drive us to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
The stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise his holy name. Christ is the Lord. Oh, praise
higher than the others. His name that shakes the mountain tops, the only word that breaks the curses off. Your name, the one that covers all, it's higher than the others, higher than the others. Full of faith
Amen. Well, if you want to pray with somebody, our prayer team is right over there, and they would love to pray with you. We have Advent stations in the plaza room, and we'd love for you to check them out. And we love you, and we'll see you next week.